Good evening. Hello. Welcome. I'd like to call to order our regular city council meeting of July 11th. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and ask Lieutenant Warwick if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, LT. Jennifer, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Bogue?
Here.
Councilmember Duncan?
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaver?
Here.
Mayor Avila?
Here. Okay, Ray, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Staff has no recommended changes for the council to consider this evening, sir.
Okay, I understand that we may pass on a presentation this morning or this evening.
There is a issue with folks from the softball group not being able to make it tonight. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll postpone that to another time. Okay, this is the time for public comment. If there's any speakers, the city clerk will give me a speaker slip. They are available at the entrance to the chamber office. Right now, I have just one speaker. Everyone's entitled to 3 minutes to speak on any subject that's not on the agenda at this time. Jennifer, this is the only speaker slip I have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to call up Mr. Richard Frost.
Yeah, I just want to comment about the illegal fireworks. They weren't as bad this year as they were last year. But if you look at the internet, so many people in Yucaipa complained about their dogs, kind of running away or just kind of getting crazy with the fireworks. I know I have two dogs. One of them ignores the fireworks and the other one barks at them. But other people, they weren't so lucky and they ran off and that kind of thing. And I was, the Saturday before the 4th of July, I was walking down Redlands Boulevard by the Redlands VA ambulatory facility, which is actually in Loma Linda, not Redlands. But there was a dog darting back back and forth with traffic, and almost got hit a couple of times, and then just disappeared onto the VA. But I don't know if it's because of fireworks or not. But a lot of dogs, they just run away, and they have to. Someone get hit, and stuff like that. But just look at all the complaints, the people from Yucaipa made online. It's kind of a list this long and that kind of. Anyways.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. All right, Irene, do you want to was this for a public comment and nothing specific to the agenda?
It's a comment regarding, this was the Wildwood Creek Basin.
Okay.
Was funded, and I did try to reach somebody in the, Yucaipa City, and they never got back to me. So my question, the first question would be, was this part of the Sustainable Development Act that went through? Was this one of their grants?
We don't comment. You're allowed to speak for 3 minutes, and
Okay,
you can
then
ask
I
those
will.
questions, and at the end, if it's worthy, we would ask the city manager to address it,
Okay.
or at least meet with you at a later time.
Thank you. In 2008, San Bernardino County decided to come across a county-wide vision statement regarding climate change and solutions paid by higher taxes, fees, and sustainable development grants. I was here last week, or the week before, when we had the last meeting, and I was talking about water. I was talking about the water problems that California's had. And you guys put through a grant or something right after I spoke. I was speaking about the water problems, and after I spoke to Yucaipa City Water, they said we have about 6 years worth of water. And what I was speaking of this that was going through, they had no idea about. The reason I ask this is because part of these grants are going through, and like I asked, United Nations Agenda 21. The way they are going through are through these grants. They're going through our city councils here. And that is how the United States has been going under the same thing that Europe is going through. And this means no property. This means we are going to depopulate. And if you want to look at it, there's a whole book on it on Amazon. And that is what's going on. Whenever I call and talk to somebody at the city council or through Yucaipa Valley here, they have no idea what I'm talking about. But all my friends through Britain know exactly what's going on because they're rioting throughout the whole entire Europe. We have the Netherlands, we have food crisis. All this gas problem is coming from these grants. So I'm gonna turn around and start blaming the city council for putting these through. And I don't know if you are those people who are doing it, but I am watching all of it because I've never been so disturbed. I never went to city council meetings before. And when I was used as a useful idiot to put something through, and I hope that wasn't the case, I hope you will rescind exactly what happened. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have no more speakers. So we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that we want to pull off for discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mayor and council member business, do we have anything to report from the dais? Mr. Duncan?
No.
Nothing, sir.
Nothing, nothing? Okay, moving on from that, we'll go ahead and go into item number 12. Megan Wolf, Public Arts Committee appointment and direction, et cetera.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Public Arts Committee serves as an advisory board to the City Council and administers a public art program for the city with the final decision being made by the council. On May 10th, Bob Norris resigned as the representative from the Yucaipa Valley Art Association, leaving one vacant position on the Public Arts Commission. Joe Sutt is being recommended for appointment to the Public Arts Committee as the Yucaipa Valley Art Association representative, with a term of July 11th, 2022 to January 1st, 2023. In addition, the Public Arts Committee currently does not have a city council liaison. A city council liaison can help in the selection and facilitation of public art projects for council consideration. Should council direct staff to add a city council liaison to the committee, staff will return to council with a resolution. This evening, staff is asking council to appoint Joe Sutt to the Public Arts Committee and to provide direction to staff relative to a council liaison for the Public Arts Committee. Joe is here this evening and can answer any questions that you may have. And this concludes my report at this time.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Nothing. All right. We have a nomination of Joe Sutt to be on the Public Arts Committee.
Well, we have two different items, so should
Well,
we split it
we'll
in
go
two?
with that one, yeah.
Yeah, I'll move Joe Sutt to be on the Public Arts Committee.
All right.
Seconded.
We have first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, appointment and direction to appoint a council liaison.
What are you looking at me for?
Who's the most artistic?
I once made a paper mache peach in 4th grade. They got me the blue ribbon. So
That's you.
I nominate Mayor Pro Tem Justin Beaver.
And I second that.
Guess it's all you. I was going to volunteer for it, but you fell on that one, so.
Is any further discussion on that item? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations,
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
We take light heart, but it's a serious thing, and we appreciate you stepping up and doing that.
I think it's very important. I think it plays into the culture of our community. Certainly a very important committee that I'm actually excited to be a part of, so.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Possible action on pending legislation. Mr. Casey, do we have anything?
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Moving on to department reports. Item number 13, Mr. Casey, the police report, 2021 annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to the soon-to-be Captain Warwick to give this report today. Currently Lieutenant, soon-to-be Captain Warwick.
Congratulations on your promotion there, Lieutenant.
Thank you very much. Okay, Honorable Mayor and members of the council, it's my pleasure to present the year-end report for 2021 from the Yucaipa Police Department. Maybe we're just gonna stare at this slide all night. See, if you had me do more presentations, I would know that. Okay, so here's the 2021 organizational chart. Of specific interest to most people, as you see all of the patrol deputy sheriffs and sergeants and detectives. And that is very important to get to calls quickly, to respond and investigate thoroughly, and then if need be, get it to those detectives to perform a more comprehensive investigation. What's very unique about Yucaipa, and I think what makes us one of the safest cities, is all of the specialty positions that a lot of times people don't recognize on this organizational chart. Later in my presentation, I'll highlight some of the work that's being done by some of our other staff, but this is one of the only cities that I'm aware of that actually has a quality of life deputy sheriff. So a full-time deputy sheriff is to work alongside our residents and business owners to deal with issues such as homelessness, vandalism, any of those odd calls where a deputy sheriff going from patrol call to patrol call, not that they're rushing through anything, but they might not have the hour or the weeks that it takes to go through some of these comprehensive problems. So we have, complex problems. We had, as you know, Deputy Rosa originally was in that spot during 2021. She promoted to the rank of detective, and I'm proud to say that Tony Ocala has stepped right in, and I'll show you some of the things that he's producing later on in the presentation. Also, if you remember, in September of 2021, you approved a couple of positions for us at the police department. We have a second traffic deputy, and I think you're going to be very pleased when I show you the numbers that our traffic division is producing. But also, not to be lost, is you provided a third sheriff service specialist. So it is certainly the direction of council and communicated from city staff how important community outreach is and how important it is for us to be out in the community, not just responding in times of crisis and seeing people on their worst days, but getting to know our kids, having events for our community, and allowing the average law-abiding citizen who may have very minimal interaction with the police department to get to know who's inside those walls and what we do. So our sheriff service specialist has been working very hard since September, and I will highlight some of the things that she has done and some of the things that are going to be coming up here in the near future. Okay, so first, I think you're going to be very, very pleased with these traffic numbers. As anyone who lives or works in Yucaipa, you know that traffic can be problematic. People use Oak Glen, Yucaipa Boulevard, Bryant, and they treat it like a freeway, sometimes using stoplights, more like a yield sign. So you approved us for a second traffic deputy position, and I can go back to that slide. I can go out of order. I saw it jump to that traffic one. If we can go forward one. I'll start the traffic and go back to the crime stats. So last year, or excuse me, in 2020, as you can see, we had 718 citations, which really isn't a lot for a city this size. Keep in mind, a majority of 2020, we were under COVID restrictions. Many people were working from home. They were staying quarantined, and there weren't as many cars on the road. So even though the citations were down in 2020, so were traffic collisions. You added a second traffic deputy, and not just the 2 traffic deputies who do that full time, but we have given marching orders to our deputy sheriffs that in between those calls for service, as time allows, that traffic is every deputy's responsibility. So as you can see here, our traffic citation numbers went up 254%, and in 2021, we wrote 2,548 citations. I'll stay with traffic for a minute and talk about how that correlates to traffic safety and collisions. The ultimate goal of the traffic deputy in citations is not to punish the person, but it's to correct that behavior. And make no mistake about it, when somebody gets a citation for $300, $400, $500, they tell 6, 7, 8, 9 people they know. When they're pulled over with a marked unit behind them receiving that citation, everybody else driving by immediately looks down at their speedometer and sees how fast they're going. And a lot of times they're grateful that they left their house 2 minutes later so they're not the person being stopped by that deputy. When they see that, and when the word spreads on those citations, we see a decrease in collisions, and that's a really good thing. Now keep in mind, we just got the second traffic position added in September of 2021, and these stats are only for 2021. I'm very excited about our 2022 numbers and anxious to see what they are, but when you look at going from 186 non-injury collisions down to 136, that's a pretty good reduction, especially considering we only had that second traffic deputy for a few months. The injury traffic collisions decreased by 9, and then we did have, unfortunately, 5 fatalities. We did have 3 of those fatalities were in one single accident back in January. We had another vehicle versus pedestrian back in January, and the third traffic collision was later this year in July. We have not had a fatal traffic collision since adding that second deputy position. Not that that obviously won't happen again, but I think people seeing more deputies out on the road conducting traffic enforcement is helping to reduce traffic collisions. So that's a very good sign. So if I can go back now to the statistics. So here are our crime statistics, as you can see, and I know we've delivered this report, and many of you have been up here for a long time and understand Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. So Part 1 crimes, generally the more violent, murder, manslaughter, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, but there are some property crimes such as burglary, larceny, vehicle theft, arson that are also included in Part 1 crimes. We were almost identical. We went from 909 of those crimes to 910. So we stayed about even. Part 2 crimes can be looked at a couple of different ways. Those are things like simple assaults, loitering, embezzlement, forgery, counterfeit, disorderly conduct, driving under the influence. We did see a 10% increase from 2020 to 2021 in those Part 2 crimes. Again, 2020, there were not as many people out and about, so statewide, we have actually seen an increase in both Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. Not so much here in Yucaipa, as Part 1 stayed pretty consistent, but Part 2 crimes went up statewide quite a bit. It's not always bad to see Part 2 crimes going up, and what I mean by that is Part 2 crimes are driving under the influence arrest. If there's not a deputy to monitor that behavior and do something about it, that bad behavior or that crime goes unchecked. Disorderly conduct, curfew violations, loitering, and drug offenses. So although those numbers climb, the Part 2 crimes, we have seen more arrests in some of those categories. So if you'll see, we have a chart here going back to 2017, just to show you that although we did have that 10% increase in Part 2 crimes from 20 to 21, it really just returned us to where we were in about 2017. Okay, so this is, as you know, Deputy Rosa, and it's now Deputy Alcala is our quality of life deputy. Both of them have done a phenomenal job. So in 2021, the quality of life deputy handled 431 calls for service, 28 crime reports, 12 new homeless contacts, 28 arrests, a search warrant, was able to find housing for 6 individuals, and there were 4 encampments removed. The deputies also conducted 2 crime-free multi-housing meetings, 3 neighborhood watch meetings, a Rotary presentation, and participated in our citywide operator training. So if you remember last year, I presented you the mid-year report. We talked about how important it was that we got our park rangers and our code enforcement on our encrypted radios. It's proven to be extremely beneficial. We put on a few-day class at the police department where we had all those individuals come in, train on the radios, learn how to speak and understand how a deputy speaks on the radio, and most importantly, how to get a hold of us in the case of an emergency. A lot of times they discover crimes at the city parks before we do. They arrive for work and they see things or they see a suspicious person And now instead of trying to figure out who's on duty and make a phone call from some of the deputies they know, they can get on the radio and we're right there. So the quality of life deputy also helped out with that. This is our multiple enforcement team. Again, this is one of those assignments that not every station has. This is something that the council has given us enough deputies where we can take a couple of deputies and say, hey, we have a problematic area. We've had a rash of burglaries in this area. We're having vandalism here. We're having, if you remember, people steal the circuit boxes from the city lights, from Jersey Mike, some of the other businesses. This is a team we can say, don't respond to those calls for service. Your problem right now is this issue that we're experiencing. They can write search warrants. They can do those more complex investigations. And I might note, before I go on and talk too much about them, this is one of the reasons that in my drawer right now back at the station, I have a 5-page list of deputy sheriffs who want to come work in Yucaipa. Because we have opportunities like this that are good for the business owners, good for the residents, but deputies crave these positions because generally these are very high-performing deputies who are getting close to promoting to the rank of detectives, and other deputies see that, and they want to come work here, and it makes all the other deputies work that much harder. So as you can see, they responded to 351 calls for service, and a lot of those, like I said, they're not going to the burglary alarm call or the 911 call. A call for service is also something that they initiate, so these guys stay very busy. They did complete 95 crime reports, made 62 arrests, assisted probation with 4 criminal investigations, wrote 12 search warrants, and assisted the gang team with 3 search warrants. And they also helped with that radio training that we did with the city. This is a deputy, Wade Jackson, who handles all of our adult protective services and children and family services referrals that we get. Believe it or not, unfortunately, we get dozens of referrals a week, as do other municipalities throughout the county and throughout the state. Anytime that there's an allegation, we investigate it. So rather than taking a deputy sheriff who happens to be working in that beat that day, we have a deputy who we send to all the training that has the expertise, somebody that's proven themselves to conduct thorough investigations, be very relatable to children, and also knows how to converse and get information from potential senior victims. And that deputy is responsible for all of those. So as you can see here, works very hard. 273 referrals received in 2021, and that number has gone up to closer to the dozen a week thus far that we've had in 2022. 66 criminal investigations, 5 children's assessment center interviews, and what that is, if it gets to the point where there's information that that deputy feels like he's not able to get comfortably from that child, something that maybe he needs to talk to a professional about, we have access to a children's assessment center where we can sit that child down with a professional and sit down, color with that person, talk to that person. It might take multiple appointments, but he has the discretion to go use the children's assessment center to get that extra information that we need to put a case together. And then he also wrote 6 search warrants. So there's another deputy sheriff who stays very busy. So our traffic enforcement unit, if you guys remember in late 2021, this picture went out and went pretty viral. There were a bunch of people trying to get stopped on Yucaipa Boulevard. So I don't know if we accomplished our purpose, but he had some nicknames on social media that was pretty fun. But in addition to the numbers I already showed you, our traffic guys also arrested 21 people, and it's a citation, but it's an arrest for unlicensed driver. 6 other arrests and coordinated 4 Office of Safety, Traffic Safety, DUI, saturation operations, and 8 traffic safety operations, and also participated in that radio training. Additionally, it's not on the slide here, but it's in the packets that are attached to the agenda and online, but these guys went to a significant amount of training. When we have a major injury accident, or unfortunately when we have a fatality, a lot of times we have to reach out to other stations to get people with those expertise. Even though we got that second traffic deputy in late 2021, we spent a lot of time in later that year sending these deputies to training. So that's why I'm really excited to see what those 2022 numbers are. But we have that expertise now in-house to work those fatal traffic collisions and a very comprehensive and thorough major injury traffic collision because of the training that these gentlemen went to. This is our school resource officer. We also had a transition in this position. It used to be Deputy Wedge, now it's Deputy Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones had the unique opportunity of becoming the school resource officer when a lot of kids were still doing school from home, and that required a lot of home visits when the school was concerned about someone's attendance or grades or behavior, certain comments made. We had a deputy sheriff, and he got a little bit of help, but as you can see here, he did 77 home visits, 407 calls for service. And again, when he goes to initiate, if the campus calls him over there for a specific issue, or if he's going to a school visit, it creates a call for service. So he, like the traffic guys and the Met guys, he's not going to the 911 calls unless it's an emergency or the burglary alarm. He's doing things related to the school. He did make 3 arrests. He did 158 school visits. And as you can see, there's a paragraph there on all the different stuff that a good school resource officer does with the school. Our superintendent, Callie Binks, can't say enough about him. She really likes him. He has a great relationship with the kids, and we got the right guy doing the job. Now with, unfortunately, after what happened in Texas, and I'll get into some of the active shooter stuff, he's been very instrumental in working with the school, meetings with myself, the fire department, Trevor, our new emergency coordinator at the city, talking about the construction of the schools, the layouts of the schools, emergency responses to the schools, because there's a very high likelihood he might be our first on scene. So I'll get into some of that training, but very valuable asset for us over at the police department. Proactive enforcement and social media. This has been something that we've really increased in 2021. We already had a very big following, large following on social media, and we've really turned the page and really are highlighting a lot of our people. People in the community might not have that regular interaction with these deputy sheriffs. They might just see them driving by in a car. And I know for people who live in the city, sometimes they like to see what's being done, what's being recovered, how did that case work out. So we've been highlighting a lot of our cases on social media, just showing what some of these guys are doing. A lot of these, when I say proactive enforcement, these are not things where somebody's calling and saying, I think my neighbor has a car full of guns. This is deputies developing informants out in the field, conducting thorough investigations, sometimes writing search warrants, working with allied agencies, and coming up with seizures like this, because those guns and the ammo and the dope, those are things that we don't want on our streets, certainly not in Yucaipa, so they're doing a fantastic job. Okay, events, public events and volunteer recruitment. I'm happy to tell you that last year, our volunteers donated more than 19,660 hours. So some of that is in the county area because it's our search and rescue, but it's very hard to dissect those numbers because a lot of our city residents go into county areas and get lost hiking or have a need for search and rescue. And also we've used our search and rescue teams here in the city, specifically during the flooding when we were going door to door, first of all warning people about it, and then when the flooding covered some of the streets and some of the houses were endangered, these volunteers, who most of whom have full-time jobs, came out and helped with that. And that number of almost 20,000 hours volunteered, I think, is incredible. So we have significantly increased the amount of citizens on patrol we have at the station. We've done a bunch of big recruiting pushes, letting them know exactly what the job is. And the gentleman here pictured on the right in the white shirts, those are citizens on patrol. And we've got a whole bunch more of them in 2021 and already in 2022. So I really enjoy these community events. This is, as you know, this is my background. I came from our department's public affairs division. So one of the first things when I got here and got to meet several of you and got to meet city staff is there is a big push here in the city of Yucaipa to be out in the community and doing events. I took that very seriously, and luckily I have the staff that is very like-minded and willing to do these things. 2021 and 2022, 3 different times we went out with the Challenger Little League team. We played Little League with them. In addition to the staff that we have working at the rodeo and up at the YPAC for the different events, we have several citizens on patrol, just extra eyes and ears. And you'll see I have a picture coming up where inevitably on those events we get missing children. And so we've had several times where they're looking, the kid doesn't know or the frantic parent doesn't know. And if you have more people with patches on their shoulders and badges on their chest, it's awesome to see, okay, there's somebody who can help me with my problem. So the amount of them that we have out is awesome. We graduated several more citizens on patrol. Once they join us and come to some meetings and find out what exactly we do and how they can help out, when they decide they're gonna stay, we send them through a Citizen Patrol Academy. And they go learn, radio etiquette, how to be safe out there, what they can do, what they can't do. And so we graduated some people. Unfortunately, this is a 2021 picture. I don't like to put in too many pictures with the masks, but it is what it is. This was 2021, and I'm glad we're done with that now. But those are some of our new members. So here in the upper right here, that's actually Deputy Brandt. That was a missing child. That was during the Winterfest up at the YPAC, having a bunch of deputy sheriffs out there. And then we're just involved in a lot of the community stuff. We have Sergeant Hockmay who goes to all of the Rotary meetings. Mayor, I know that you see him out there bright and early on Tuesday mornings. I go to, me and some of my bald brothers up there in the top middle, we do the Chamber of Commerce. This picture in the upper left, I am not exaggerating when I tell you weekly, we have people stop by the station, whether it's a Boy Scout troop wanting a tour. Some call ahead, some don't. Sometimes it's just somebody bringing their son or daughter. They want to meet a deputy sheriff and get a sticker. So many of our local businesses come in and they bring flowers or they bring snacks for the deputies. And it's Captain Williams and I, we stop what we're doing and we go out and meet him. And the deputies at the station know if you're in the station and somebody's in the lobby, we're gonna grab you and come out there and take a picture and fulfill that request. So that's definitely something I'm gonna miss, but they're in there all the time. Some of the bigger events, National Night Out, we got another one coming up on August 2nd. I was here for the one in 2020 when I wasn't assigned to this station, but I came out in 2021 and was very impressed with the attendance. I think it almost doubled. Our citizens on patrol couldn't pack enough snow cones or spin enough cotton candy. There were constantly lines. Megan arranged for a bunch of bouncy house stuff. I think you and Jenny worked together on that. But it was fun. It's a fun event. So on August 2nd, we're going to be pushing it out on our social media, but I encourage anybody who might be watching this online to join us out there. We're going to be up at the community center, community park from 5 to 8, and it's a great chance to meet a deputy sheriff, see a search and rescue member in their gear, the mounted posse and their horses. We have all kinds of demonstrations, and we encourage the community to get out there. It's a good chance. Like I said, law-abiding people generally don't know a lot of deputy sheriffs. We want to get to know them, so hopefully they can make it out there. Let me go back one. I might have clicked out of there. Another thing that we did in 2020 and 2021, and then we just did in 2022 was the bicycle rodeo. We get together with some local businesses. We got some bikes donated. We have some helmets donated by one of our civic clubs here in town. And we go out and we teach bicycle safety. Again, we did that up at the community park. What you're seeing here in the pictures is we had a big open house last year at the police department. We're gonna be doing that again this November, where it was really nice to see. We would meet families and business people out in our community room at the station, and we would take them on a tour of the station. We'd go to the back lot where we had a boat from the dive team and the horses from the posse, and we brought a canine out that helps with some of our searches. And the kids loved it, and it would take about 20 minutes, and I would go back to the community room, and it was standing room only. I've never worked in a place that has this much community support. So to be able to open the doors that obviously have to stay locked for a reason most of the time, but to bring them in and show them what a deputy sheriff does, and more importantly, for people who visit here, who live here, and businesses that operate here, what we can do for them. A lot of people don't realize our capabilities, and it's not their fault if we don't tell them. So it's really nice to show off how we can help them. So that concludes this annual report, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Any questions or comments of staff?
Well, first of all, I think it was a great report. Excellent. Thank you for all that you guys do. I have one quick question. I occasionally come across those people that are a little reluctant to report something. And they think, it's kind of petty and I don't want to bother the police. What would you say to them?
Well, I would definitely encourage them to call. So the way that it works, if you call, and report something, report a crime, a suspicious person, just a concern that you have, everything gets prioritized. So if there is a burglary alarm, if there's a robbery going on, if there's a traffic collision with injuries, naturally, your call for service where you're just maybe something doesn't feel right might not get handled right away. We've been getting a lot better of having our dispatchers communicate with the reporting parties. If there's going to be a wait time, call them back, let them know they're not being forgotten about. But eventually we will get to that. You can also, because we've continued to be supported by you guys and we have lots of deputy sheriffs out there, you might not wait long at all. And absolute worst case scenario, a deputy can talk to you, maybe put your mind at ease if it's nothing, document it and share it with the other deputies. At the end of every shift, we share within the station a shift log of who was arrested for a warrant, what cars were towed, what suspicious people were out there, how we handled certain problems. So although not every deputy works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that information gets passed with everybody at the police department. When it's something involving the fire department, we share it with the fire department. When it's a concern with the city, we let them know right away, or if it's an ongoing issue, we can provide updates where we meet with city staff every Monday morning. So they are our eyes and ears. And whenever I go out and speak, whether it's at my chamber meetings, I've spoke at the Rotary, I've spoke at the schools, I've spoke at different events, I tell people, if you see something, say something. We cannot be everywhere at once, and it probably doesn't look right or feel right to you for a reason. So let us at least talk to you about it, come out and take a look for ourselves, and when we document it, it becomes a permanent record. So if something that seems very minor pops up 3 months or 6 months down the road, you don't have to go back in your phone on your calendar. What day was it that I saw that person or that suspicious car? You have it memorialized with an incident number, and we keep those records forever.
Which creates a pattern, right?
It does.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you guys do an incredible job. As you already said, you know that the city of Yucaipa supports the police. We just do. And this is why I'm here, and this is why I love our city. So thank you for all that you do. Thanks, deputies and everyone. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
I have a follow-up concurrent with Councilmember Bogue's question. Sometimes, and I've come across this several times, where people say, I don't want to call 911 because it's not an emergency. No one's, there's no traffic collisions, there's no bank robberies. Are there alternatives to 911 for the public?
Yep, we have a non-emergency number that we can provide. It's on all of our business cards. All of the deputies are armed with it. And what happens is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, it rings to the station where you're getting somebody within the police department that picks up that phone and might be looking across Yucaipa Boulevard at exactly what you're talking about. If it's something where we need to send a deputy sheriff, they can do that. If you have a question and it needs to records, you need a report released, or you need to get live scan, all those calls go to them. Well, a majority of our problems happen after hours and on the weekends. So what happens when they leave the police department at 5 o'clock, it rolls over to dispatch. We have dispatchers that are working 24/7 that are also answering that 911 line. You don't need to wait until it's convenient for a deputy sheriff. You have the same amount of deputy sheriffs on at 3 in the morning as you do at 3 in the afternoon. So when it's important to you, it's important to us, and whether you call 911 if it's an emergency, or you call that non-emergency number, it really doesn't change the priority. Just because you call 911 doesn't mean that we get to the call faster. Now the dispatcher, if they're both ringing at the same time, is gonna pick up the 911 call first, capture a summary of what you're talking about, and the person who called the non-emergency line, they might actually have a more urgent issue. So they're gonna prioritize it not by what number you called, but what the circumstances are.
Is that number available on the website?
It is. It's on the website, and I can tell that to you right now if you'd like me to tell people.
Sure,
who are
let the
sitting at
public
home.
know right now. Put it on
So
record.
we have a few numbers, but you can always get a hold of us at 909-918-2305.
Did our newspaper reporter get that? Oh, there she is.
Oh,
Okay.
they know how to get a hold of me just fine. They have the secret squirrel number that I keep in my pocket.
And I'd like to echo what I'm sure everyone else is thinking. We do support our public safety, law enforcement, and fire. And Yucaipa is the second safest city, or was at least, in the county system, behind a community that's largely gated. So I think we're doing very, very well for an open community. and the 28 square miles that you guys serve and protect. Thank you so much, Lieutenant, and congratulations again on your promotion. We're going to miss you.
Thank you, sir.
Did the National Night Out, there was a dunk tank there?
There is a dunk tank up at National Night Out.
Have an
yes.
opportunity to dunk a deputy,
To dunk a deputy, yes.
maybe a captain even?
Well, you said deputy. I'm afraid that it might mess up my hair if I go into the dunk tank. So our SSS is trying to convince me that that's something that I need to do. We'll see. Maybe we'll check the weather that day, but it'll be a good time. There are some deputies that I actually wanted to dunk. So when I was at National Night Out, I threw the ball and took my shot there.
Thank you for everything you do. Obviously, I'm biased. I was hugely supportive of everything you guys do. Hear nothing but phenomenal feedback from the community of how appreciative they are for your attentiveness to their needs and your vigilance of getting out ahead of crime before it happens. And a lot of phone calls from people saying they've gotten moving violations, to which I respond, well, don't do that. Because we're encouraging that kind of proactivity from our deputies. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 14. Andrew Hamilton will discuss the Property and Business Improvement Districts. This is a receive and file, so no vote will be needed. Oh, I guess, do we have to vote on accepting the report?
Just for a formal approval, to accept the receive and file.
Okay, yeah, this is not a receive and file, so we need a motion and a second to,
Move approval for the police department's annual report for 2021.
I'll second.
all right. No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries, we will accept it. Okay, Andrew.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This annual presentation is normally brief. However, with the expiration of PBID 1, I'll describe that PBID in a bit. Next month, staff will provide somewhat more background and information during this presentation. The item before you is regarding the Property and Business Improvement Districts, the PBIDs, and their mechanism for annual assessment paid by property owners within the PBIDs on their property taxes to the county, which then gets to the city, and the related annual reporting requirements. Both PBIDs have been operating under their current petitions for a 10-year extension, which is from 2012 and 2014 respectively. As discussed at prior city council meetings, these initiating documents for the association which operates the PBIDs reference that it was intended to be a nonprofit entity. While a nonprofit was initially formed and operated for a number of years, over time the filings for that organization ceased and it did not continue to operate. In addition, the board has recognized some challenges with the operations, including a lack of insurance for the association and the board, and their limited legal support. Based on this, the board voted 4-1 in July of 21 to recommend the initiation of the petition to disband. This city council on August 9th voted 5-0 to move forward with that petition to disband the PBIDs. Ultimately, however, there were not enough votes received for disbanding, and the PBIDs remain in effect until their expiration dates, like I said, 10 years after that 2012, which would be 2022, and 10 years after the 2014, which is now 2024. PBID 1 is the one that's expiring in 2022, and in fiscal 23, the city will not be able to make an assessment for PBID in PBID 1. The city will take on that fiscal 23 maintenance as there is enough money in the general fund budget for fiscal 23. It should be noted that the board remains in effect until 2024, despite no longer including the PBID funding for PBID 1. In the last 2 weeks, staff has attempted to reach out to the board to clarify their path forward for PBID 1, and I'm happy to say a special meeting was scheduled for today, and that was discussed at that board meeting. So as you see, the recommendations are for the city council to receive and file the fiscal 22 statements and the fiscal 23 annual budget for both PBID 1 and 2. However, just for PBID 2, it's also to receive and file the fiscal 23 fiscal report and assessment listing. Those items relate to the fiscal 23 assessment. In addition, there's a few additional recommendations that we discussed with legal counsel prior to the meeting. Number one is for the PBID board to clarify the fiscal 23 budget for PBID 1 to reflect no assessments in fiscal 23 due to the expiration of PBID 1, and also for existing city funds held by PBID 1, for PBID 1 should be spent by August 2022 to wind down PBID 1. That concludes my presentation, and all the authors of this staff report are available for questions. It was a group effort.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay, one of the discussions that we had in the past was whether or not to continue with the PBID program. And I remember Councilmember Duncan, me, and at least one other person were in favor of letting it die. Is that still the wish of the council?
That's what we decided, right?
Yeah, we decided that. I just want to make sure that it's there. So there's no need for further discussion on that. All right, since this is a receive and file, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We'll go ahead and move on to number 15, Landon Kern with the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm excited to present for you this evening our phase 13 of our neighborhood traffic calming program. This program is exciting and a rewarding program. I think it represents a good example of customer service and our opportunity as staff to partner with the residents as well as our men and women in uniform at the police department to address important community concerns related to traffic and parking and traffic safety. And so we're here to review the recommendations for our phase 13. Since it has been some time since we presented and moved forward with our phase 12 a couple years ago, I wanted to take a little time to go through some of the history of the program and provide a little background before I dive into the recommendations for phase 13. So doing a little history here, we have our neighborhood traffic calming program originated and was adopted by council as a part of the 2007-2008 budget as a service level option. And the intent of the program was to create an objective and consistent process for addressing concerns such as speeding, parking, and other safety-related issues on lower volume residential streets. The program also includes a specific a local policy for establishing a procedure to address speeding concerns. And I'll take a moment here, if I can go to the next slide. There we go. To just highlight for you some of the steps that we take in this process to go through when we receive these speeding concerns. The first step, of course, is when we receive these concerns from a resident or someone in the public. And right away, we log that into our traffic calming log, and we start to work directly with our police enforcement. Our monthly meetings, we go over locations and highlight for them what areas are of concern and are being brought to our attention. And in many cases, we're able to increase enforcement and awareness in those areas. We had the privilege to hear the kind of impact that has on our community and establishing, encouraging changes and mitigating speeding to some extent. And so we are, that is the first step that we take. In some cases, if those speeding concerns aren't mitigated with enforcement and awareness, we can proceed to steps 3 and 4 and look at installing some speed limit signage, or in some cases, some speed feedback signs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that since that's part of our recommendations for phase 13. Important to note that these steps are all on one slide here. It can take some time to get through these steps. It can take years to get through, even through steps 1 through 4 in some cases, and move into these steps 5 through 7. If we continue to get more concerns and they're not being mitigated through enhancement or some minor signage increases, we're able to actually move forward and perform a more in-depth engineering study and get information via speed surveys, look at minor street improvements such as striping enhancements with our annual striping program, or even just increasing some signage in certain areas. And finally, with respect to speeding, if the mitigation measures 1 through 6 aren't really getting the job done and encouraging that behavior to change, we can finally look at what was developed with this program when it was originally adopted, and go through a speed hump warrant analysis, which has select criteria that we analyze to determine whether or not that particular segment of street that's been brought to our attention warrants us installing what would temporarily be speed humps, and then potentially moving into replacing those temporary speed humps with permanent speed humps. So that's with respect to kind of our standard concerns for speeding. Next, with our program, we have a local policy for installing stop signs. And I think it's important to clarify and explain the difference between our local agency stop warrant policy that was developed with this program, and compare that to the state MUTCD stop warrant analysis. What's unique about our local agency stop warrant analysis, it allows us to perform that analysis with a little bit less engineering studies. It's specific to residential streets that have less than 2,500 vehicles per day on that segment, as well as some other criteria. So it's a really great resource for us to use when we have concerns and requests for stop signs. We can get into these select areas and analyze whether or not a stop warrant would be appropriate for the particular segments that meet that criteria. And so for our arterial streets or street segments that have an average daily traffic that exceeds 2,500 vehicles per day, that is where we need to do a more in-depth analysis with the California MUTCD outside of the traffic program. And so this program is structured to be an ongoing assessment of all of our concerns that are generated by citizens, and it's something that's we maintain constantly and address those concerns as they come in. And approximately once a year, we'll return to council and implement mitigation measures or recommend implementation of mitigation measures that have been determined to be eligible as a part of the program. The last time we came to council was in January of 2020, right before the pandemic, and council approved 15 mitigation measures as a part of that phase 12. And those 15 measures have been implemented, and staff has received positive feedback from the residents. So the next slide shows all of the neighborhood traffic calming mitigation measures that council has approved and have been implemented since its inception in 2007. So this shows the locations through town of various measures that have been put in place with phases 1 through 12. Since this last phase 12, we entered into a unique time when traffic conditions changed dramatically due to the COVID pandemic. And so in some sense, the phase 13 was put on hold. We needed to wait until traffic conditions really returned to their normal state to make sure that these mitigation measures were properly analyzed. And so we're now able to take a look, and we were now able to take a look at the 81 concerns that were presented to us by our citizens and residents, and evaluate those. In many cases, we're able to address some of those concerns with our public works ongoing maintenance activities, and in some cases, some of the concerns don't meet the criteria for the neighborhood traffic calming program, but pleased to report that we were able to evaluate those 81 concerns and have come up with, completed the 15 field assessments, and are recommending of those 15 assessments, 15 mitigation measures that are shown here on this slide as phase 13. So you'll see the legend on the right there We have one location where we are recommending an all-way, three-way new stop controlled intersection. And the other locations include a variety of mitigation measures ranging from signage, speed limit signage, and no parking signage, and finally, 2 locations where we're replacing temporary speed humps with permanent speed humps on Douglas and 18th Street there. The table on pages 2 and 3 summarizes all of the mitigation measures and the concerns that are a part of this phase of the program. And most of the concerns that were reported are speeding related, as I mentioned previously, or some are related to signage and many for parking restrictions at various locations. As I mentioned here, there are 3 locations where we will have new stop signs recommended. 2 of those locations are simply adding a stop sign at an uncontrolled T intersection, so a stop warrant analysis wasn't necessary. But however, the location in red on the left part of the screen there is at the intersection of 17th Street and Tennessee. And we did complete a local stop warrant analysis, and it was warranted at that location. So that is the one location where a new controlled intersection will be introduced at that location there. The other recommendations included here also include some parking restrictions, in some cases related to site distance concern at exiting private properties or commercial centers or shopping centers where site distance has become an issue. We also are recommending as a part of this program to replace the speed feedback signs. So we are recommending purchase of 4 battery-powered speed feedback signs that we can install and move around through town, which helps us to increase awareness of the speed limit and the speed that people are driving on those segments. So we're excited to replace some of those devices that have been outdated and are no longer working properly. And finally, once again, there are 2 locations, one on Douglas and one on 18th Street, where we're recommending replacing the temporary speed humps with permanent speed humps. Part of the process that's in the program allows us to get feedback from residents about the temporary speed humps. So the implementation, the recommendation of the permanent speed humps is a result of the positive feedback we received from the residents on keeping those measures in place to keep people driving slower. Finally, there are 2 other locations that came up with this last round of concerns that came in. 2 intersections in particular, one at 14th Street in Kentucky and another at Outer Highway 10 in Alta Vista. As I described previously, the difference between the local and the state stop warrant analysis requires that for these 2 intersections with the higher traffic volumes that we're seeing, we are entering into a more in-depth analysis to see whether or not a stop sign would be warranted at those 2 locations. So that is ongoing. We weren't able to incorporate that into the traffic calming phase 13 due to the higher traffic volumes and the nature of the traffic conditions at these 2 intersections. Finally, the amount of $100,000 is included in the fiscal year 22-23 CIP for the program, which includes $60,000 from the previous fiscal years that has been carried over into this new fiscal year. And the estimated cost to implement all of these phase 13 measures that are proposed is approximately $57,000. There is sufficient funding available to fund the recommended measures for phase 13 and the administrative costs that will accompany that. And with that, staff is recommending that council approve staff's recommendations as listed in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, Landon. Are any questions of staff? No? Do I hear a motion to accept, review,
I'll
and
make a
approve the?
motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 16, Fermin Preciado, award of contract.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This item is the award of a construction contract for Phase 2 of the Oakland Road, Live Oak Canyon Road widening project from Colorado Street to Outer Highway 10 South. This project is included in the fiscal year 22-23 capital improvement program. And as you can see on the screen, the limits of the program extend from Colorado Street towards the I-10 freeway, over the freeway and over to the intersection of Outer Highway 10 South with Live Oak Canyon Road. The project includes the widening of Live Oak Canyon Road and Oakland Road along this segment to the ultimate width per the general plan, and it also includes the installation of a new traffic signal at Outer Highway 10 South and Live Oak Canyon Road, which is currently a three-way intersection as part of this contract, this project. A fourth approach to the intersection is being proposed, which will serve as the access point to the Pumpkin Patch property. The purpose of the project is to improve access to and from the I-10 freeway, facilitate economic development in this area of the city, and also to improve circulation in this area, specifically during the peak pumpkin patch season months, and also not just specifically to the pumpkin patch, but also the other properties that are adjacent to the project. This project is being completed in phases. Phase 1 was completed in 2019, which widened Oakland Road and added an exclusive right turn lane into the AM/PM gas station there between 14th Street and the westbound on-ramps to the 10 freeway. As I mentioned, Phase 2 includes the intersection improvements at Outer Highway 10 South and the installation of a traffic signal. What you see on the screen is an overlay of what the proposed intersection improvements will look like. Again, with the traffic signal, and as I mentioned earlier, towards the bottom of the screen is that fourth approach, which will be the access to the pumpkin patch. The design and engineering and construction plans were completed for this intersection, and also for the street widening along Live Oak Canyon Road, which fronts the Pumpkin Patch property, and that is what you see on the screen here before you. The construction plans and street widening plans do include the two driveway approaches to the Pumpkin Patch property. And includes curb gutter, sidewalk, and again, the widening of Live Oak Canyon Road to its ultimate width, which it was on both, if you widen both sides of the street, it's 5 lanes, 2 in each direction with a center turn lane. This project will widen it to 2 lanes going towards the freeway and the center left turn lane. The operator of the Pumpkin Patch property has submitted a conditional use permit application to the city for their event. That application was recently submitted, and the staff has reviewed that application and has applied several conditions of approval to the CUP application. One of those is the street widening. So the Pumpkin Patch operator is proposing to complete the street widening. And as part of the city's project, we will complete the intersection improvements if this contract is approved tonight. The engineering design and the plans for the widening was included was completed by the city. Staff has been coordinating with the Pumpkin Patch property, and as you see in the agenda report, one of the conditions of approval for their CUP will be that they will have to pay their share of the engineering design and construction plan preparation for the widening in front of their property, which is, for 25% of that cost, which is estimated to be around $25,400. They have been made aware of that condition of approval and are not opposed to that, since it does provide a benefit to their property. And staff has been working on this project for some time now to complete the project ahead of the Pumpkin Patch season. If you recall, on May 23rd, City Council approved the purchase of the traffic signal poles for this project, since those traffic signal poles do come with a long lead time, a long delivery time, 3 months in this case. And staff has also been working with the utility companies to complete the relocation of some utilities for this project, specifically the Frontier fiber optic facilities that are located near the intersection, and we'll continue to work with them. They did indicate that because of material shortages and other issues that they're having a hard time meeting our schedule, but we'll continue to work with them on the relocation of that, which will affect the construction. You can see on this here, at the bottom left, these are their cabinets, which are required to be relocated to accommodate the additional lane coming towards the freeway along Live Oak Canyon Road. The construction of this project was advertised for bids. 7 bids were received. The estimate for this project that was prepared several months ago was $440,000. The lowest bidder is Three Peaks Corporation with a bid of $531,360. Based on the bids received, we analyzed those bids and found that the cost of the construction, the concrete-related items and also the electrical items increased significantly over the last few months. So that is the primary difference between the estimate that was prepared in May to the bids received for this contract. Three Peaks Corporation, the low bidder, has completed other similar projects for the city in the past successfully, and so staff is recommending the council approve the contract with Three Peaks in the amount of $531,360.50, and also that city council approve a contingency to that contract in the amount of $43,000 and $42,000 for construction contract administration, inspection, and testing, for a total budget of $616,360.50. Staff is also recommending that council approve some funding from the unallocated pavement management program budget to this project. That funding can be used to complete the asphalt widening and also some of the asphalt repairs that are associated with this project. The amount that's being requested is $61,389. The current balance in this account is $264,000, so there's sufficient funding available to accommodate staff's recommendation. That concludes my report, and staff is available for questions you may have.
Thank you, Jermaine. Very good. Any questions or comments of staff?
I have a question. So is this project going to start here, or is it going to start at the other end down by Avenue E?
With the approval of this contract, this includes the intersection improvements that you see on this screen. The plans have been the plans for the street widening in front of the pumpkin patch have been shared with the pumpkin patch operators, and they will complete the widening along the frontage here. So as part of phase 2, what we're considering phase 2 is the intersection improvements here at Outer Highway 10 South, and then the remaining phases of this project will extend on the other side, on the east side of Oakland Road.
So when did the pumpkin patch submit their CUP?
They submitted, it was deemed complete a few weeks ago, but they originally submitted it, I would say, maybe 2-3 months ago, and then we requested some additional information from them, and so the original submittal was about 2-3 months ago, I would say.
Is this going to be completed before the pumpkin season starts?
The traffic signal poles are scheduled to be delivered in late August, early September, and with the award of this contract now, if we can get the intersection improvements completed, the foundations poured, when the traffic signal poles are delivered in late August, early September, we can stand the poles up and turn the signal on soon after.
Do you think they'll have their side widened by the pumpkin season starting?
I have met with the pumpkin patch operator and their contractor to share the plans with them. They are aware of the project. They did ask for a tentative schedule for the CUP to go to Planning Commission, and perhaps Ben can help answer that question.
Yeah, so the pumpkin patch was actually submitted, their CUP, in 2019 towards the end. Then they had some, I think, challenges with COVID, trying to figure out exactly what the opening would be. And so they have turned in a complete application recently, so it's been routed for department review and public comment. And then we are anticipating probably sometime in August, it would go to Plan Commission for approval.
I think his question was, you think it'll get completed by the time they open up?
Yeah, the question is it going to be completed by the time pumpkin season opens up? Because that's a problem child right there for sure.
Let me take that. So staff can't guarantee that the private sector will do what they committed to doing verbally. But as you may all recall, this started with the CEP submittal in 2019, but this effort started in earnest December into January of last year into this year, and resulting in the city taking the lead in the design of the process, design of the project, the two projects, to give us every opportunity to be successful in getting these improvements done before October. Also, the CUP process going to Planning Commission in August, if that is approved by Planning Commission in August, we can only assume for purposes of completing the plans and the construction that it'll be approved. Once it's approved in August, the plans are already complete, 100% done, ready to go, permits ready. They can go immediately to work in August. And as you heard, we'll be going to work right after this approval, if it's approved. And so I think we've given ourselves, as a collective, the best opportunity to be successful in getting those improvements done by October, given that we started on the path we started on in January of this year. But we can't guarantee that the private sector partner is able to complete their side of the improvements. We're pretty darn sure we're going to get the civil component done to the widening at the intersection, and the signal poles stood up and operational by October. But again, the poles could be delayed by 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. You just can't guarantee that everything's going to happen the way you believe it's going to happen. But we believe that both projects will be completed by October.
The poles have already been ordered, right?
Right.
Okay.
I would be real concerned about construction going on in October.
Yeah.
I would be really, really concerned about that.
Agreed.
Do we have contingency plans in place as we did last year for traffic mitigation efforts? I mean, I think maybe now is the time to start planning for the worst, hoping for the best, so that we're not.
Yes, we'll have plans in place with the alternative parking locations and the travel to and from those parking locations. Last year, I think we, together with the pumpkin patch operator, worked on some improvements to the on-site parking, the primary parking lot. That seemed to help a little bit too. And then I think there's some things that we learned last year in terms of operationally moving people along that are trying to decide which parking lot to go park at and that sort of thing, with the help of our police department partners. So I think we've learned a few things. And, last year we had a huge number of folks attend that we thought might be a little lighter because of COVID. Turned out the other way around. So yes, I think we've got a good contingency plan based on what happened last year. So.
Yeah, I'd make sure, and I think Councilmember Duncan would agree, we need to make sure that either they can get it done or just delay it till after the pumpkin season, because we don't want that mess. It's bad enough as it is, and I think it just exacerbates the problem.
Understood.
Who's the contractor for the pumpkin patch? Are we allowed to know that?
Tony Hicks is the lead for that contract.
Who?
Tony Hicks. I'm sure he'll be working with others, but.
All right. Okay, so this is a vote.
I'll move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve
Seconded.
and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And moving on to item number 17, Megan Wolf with the 2022 Rodeo Wrap-Up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I begin the report, I'd like to say that the rodeo is put on by members of the Yucaipa Equestrian Arena Committee, and those members take months out of the year to plan this event, and they are hardworking and dedicated and selfless. And Jim is currently the president, and it has been a pleasure to be able to work alongside them to execute the 2022 rodeo. This year's rodeo was held on Friday, April 1st and Saturday, April 2nd, and had a total attendance of 7,520 people. In the staff report, it lists different counties where people traveled to attend the event, and then I'd like to note that 87 people came from out of state to attend the 2022 Yucaipa Rodeo. The event included a rodeo operated by Alex Hauser, a beer garden operated by the Lions Club, food and merchandise vendors operated by the committee, and a rodeo queen pageant. To accommodate the large number of attendees, the city-owned vacant lot across the street from the facility was used for parking, as well as off-site parking at Active Church. The city partnered and the committee partnered with Omnitrans to offer a free shuttle service for event goers to get to and from the facility and Active Church. As a part of the city's sponsorship, staff assisted with marketing and logistical items, as well as city police and fire personnel. The 2022 rodeo generated a net profit in the amount of $115,939. The Yucaipa Arena Equestrian Committee would like to honor their agreement with the city and provide a check. I believe there are members of the committee here this evening that would like to present this check to City Council. The check is in the amount of $90,000. The fiscal year 21-22 adopted budget included the amount of $36,000 for the cost of the rodeo production, or the cost to Alex Hauser to put on the rodeo. However, Alex's cost this year was $57,695, of which YEAC repaid the city the total amount. The net proceeds of $90,000 will be repaid to the city to offset the cost for the purchase and installation of the Dottie Potter Arena cover lighting. This concludes my report, and then I'd like to invite the Rodeo Equestrian Arena Committee down to present a check to the City Council at this time. We do ask that staff recommends that Council receive and file the 2022 Rodeo Wrap-Up Report and accept the amount of $90,000. I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Are any questions of Megan or staff?
How do we track these numbers from San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and so forth? How do we track that?
I believe they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the ticketing system that they use to purchase tickets is how they track the counties in which people come from.
Very good. Okay, I guess JR and company, you guys want to come down and offer us a check?
Some money.
Whose name is that written to? I guess we go down there and meet the
I think it
gentleman.
says the council at whole, right?
Are we gonna give the check to you first, or?
I'm letting President go first.
Were we gonna present the check first?
You can say something, we'll just sound good.
Okay, well, at this time, we'd like to thank the city of Yucaipa. Without the support of the city of Yucaipa, we could not have made that happen. So tonight, we do have our little rodeo queen who has the check. What is it? Layla John? Don. John. Oh, I'm sorry. And she has the check to present to the city council.
You gotta get a picture of that.
And then with that, our chairman and the one who steers the ship, Jim Butler.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council, and of course Ray and Megan and all the city staff. You guys are great, and we were successful, and we couldn't do it without the city or our sponsors, and of course we couldn't do it without this amazing committee. And I'm just happy to be on this side of the dirt after that one. So. And we also have a certificate of appreciation, and we really do appreciate Ray and Megan and all the city staff, and of course you guys. So we hope you enjoyed it.
All right, let her go first. No, it's okay. Go ahead. I got mine. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Share it, pass it around, I guess. Very nice, very, very nice. All right, that was nice. All right, moving on to item number 18. I'm sorry. Council, do you have a question?
Do we have
comment?
to?
Oh, we have
make
to
a
vote on
motion
this.
item
That's
2?
right. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, keep me straight. All right, do we have a motion to accept this?
So moved.
We have a first and a second?
Right over there.
Big one, yeah.
If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries, motion carries. Thank you again. All right, now, item number 18, Ray Casey, Casablanca House Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is a follow-on to the MOU that council recently approved with the property owner of Casablanca. That particular property is adjacent to the property that houses the Casablanca House. And as a part of that MOU, City Council approved the concept of an advisory committee to address a number of things relative to the Casablanca House, the potential for historical designation, the types of public-private uses, types of improvements that may happen there, and to the extent that council would be interested in proceeding with the potential grant funding for improving the Casablanca House as well. And talked about a little different structure in that MOU. After some conversations with the property owner and others, staff is recommending a little different structure, which is one city council member, one representative from the Yucaipa Valley Historical Society, one at-large representative from the community, and one property owner representative, of course. Whatever recommendations might come from this committee would return to the full council. They'd also be, of course, discussed with the private property owner as well. And so staff is recommending that council consider this structure this evening. I think you do have a representative from the Yucaipa Valley Historical Society here this evening as well. Obviously, they are awaiting the council decision relative to the structure, and then they would go forward with their board to come up with a representative from their perspective from their board for this committee. And we would circulate, as we do with all committee appointments, we would notice this opportunity for the at-large position and accept applications for that, come back to council for final approval of membership on the committee if council so chooses. So staff is recommending that City Council adopt the resolution number 2022-42 establishing this Casablanca House Advisory Committee and approve an amendment to the Fair Share Reimbursement Agreement consistent with the approved makeup of the committee. And so if you choose to approve the recommended makeup this evening, it's a little different than the existing MOU. We would amend the MOU consistent with your approval this evening. Don't need to bring that back to you, we don't think, that we can just seek your approval for that amendment tonight, depending on what you come up with relative to the committee itself. And I have consulted with the Casablanca property owner, and they are in agreement with the makeup of the committee recommended and it being on the agenda this evening. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ray. Any questions of staff?
So hopefully we learned some lessons from the Yucaipa Valley Wine Country Specific Plan Committee, and that those things can get a little out of hand at times, and hopefully whatever we do here, how binding is this this committee, and what kind of advice or what type of direction are they going to give us?
Great questions and comments. Part of the reason this committee is much smaller, and this committee, pursuant to the memorandum of understanding with the property owner, is purely advisory. But I do believe the property owner will take seriously the recommendations made by this committee, and the property owner will be participating in these committee meetings as well. So
The fact that that parcel is by itself, separate from the rest of the property, and what if they sell that property? What are the, I mean, I don't see them keeping that property. I see them selling that property to a vineyard or some other type of business entity. What happens at that point?
So to the extent that we have encumbered this property with a memorandum of understanding, which we believe will ripen to a development agreement with the Casablanca tentative map, once that's submitted, it will be tied in with that project. It's intended to be tied in with that project. To the extent that that development agreement, that tentative map, is approved by the Planning Commission, ultimately the City Council perhaps, and we'll have a set of off-site conditions that include this preservation and restoration of the Casablanca house.
Right, any other questions?
I think it's important that we collaborate with these different stakeholders, specifically the Historical Society in Yucaipa. This is a historic, not just building, but property. It dates back to when the valley was first settled. I think I'm maybe be repeating myself, but I think I would also like to see maybe not a member on this committee, but certainly working in collaboration with our county partners in the historic realm of, you know, the museums and I know that they oversee our Adobe, perhaps involving them early in this process and working with them will free up some collaboration for future projects as it relates to this historic area of our city and this property specifically.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right, I see President of the Historical Society. Steve, is that what you are? Do you have anything that you wish to add? Fireman. Sounds good. We'll just go ahead and put it out.
To go along with Councilman Beaver, what he's saying is, my thought would be to have somebody who's knowledgeable on historic preservation, as you're saying, maybe through the county, which would make sense.
Thank you. All right, if no further discussion.
Can I ask one? So on the application from the the individual from the city, from the community, could we add a couple of questions on the application to sort of give us some idea what their general position is about the whole thing?
Sure.
Because I'd like to see somebody on there that has an open mind and someone there that's going to take information in and sort of try to make a good decision based on what's good for the whole community and not necessarily what's important to a certain group of people. Is that possible?
We can certainly do that, yes.
That's a very good suggestion.
Yes.
Let the special interest lay low on this one. All right, this requires a vote. Do I hear a motion to accept or to, approve?
So moved.
You have a first?
Are you guys appointing the council member?
Do we have to do that at this time, or is it when it's time to appoint everybody?
Well, we anticipated coming back with the full appointment later. I think that would be preferable, that we would come back with a full committee membership at a later date, including the council member.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. All right, so we have a first.
I'll second.
And we have a second. If no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and we'll look forward to further discussions on that and appointments. Okay, we're moving on to public hearings, down to the last stretch. Okay, we're going to open up the public hearing for item number 19, case number 22-63, a general plan amendment with the housing element continued from 6/27/2022 City Council meeting. And call up Ben Matlock to present.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. City staff continues to work with the California Department of Housing and Community Development on some feedback we received and making sure that we package that all up so that we have a successful adoption process and certification by the state. And so with that, staff does recommend continuance of the item. I do want to note in the staff report, it references August 9th, 2022. However, the correct date should be August 8th, 2022. And so staff requests continuance to that date certain.
All righty.
I move to continue the public hearing for case number 22-063/GPA to the city council meeting of August 9th, 2022.
And we'll close the public hearing. We'll leave it open, I'm sorry.
August
Leave it
8th.
open to August 8th.
Yeah, but it would be August 8th.
Correct. What did I
Correction.
say?
The
Motion says 9th, I'm sorry, yeah.
August 8th, understood.
August 8th.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll continue it to August 8th. All right, open up public hearing for item number 20, ordering confirmation of annual assessments for the City of Yucaipa Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District Number 1. Andrew Hamilton will give a staff presentation.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The annual presentation related to this item is normally brief. We'll continue in that tradition tonight. This is the second meeting of the two-step process, the first meeting occurring on June 28th, which along with the published notice of public hearing on July 1st in the newspaper, provided notice for tonight's public hearing to set rates and for properties located within the Landscaping and Lighting Maintenance District Number 1, called the LLMD. As you know, in 1991, the LLMD was formed, and the purpose of the LLMD is to provide a funding mechanism for costs for public areas related to maintenance, energy, and public drainage facilities. Listed in the staff report are the rates to be assessed and refunds to certain zones in accordance with the council-approved administrative funding policy. So that leads us to the recommendation that the City Council conduct this public hearing and adopt Resolution 2022-27, approve the rate adjustments of 10% and 5% as stated in Recommendation 2, and approve the series of credits in Recommendation 3 pursuant to the City Council approved policy. That concludes my staff report, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing none. Jennifer, do we have any public comments?
Just confirming you opened the public hearing.
Yes, I did at the very
Yep,
beginning.
And we have not received any public comment.
Okay, and then I'll go ahead and close the public. No, we're continuing, so we leave it open. Is that correct? Or do we close it? We close it. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council discussion.
I move
Anything?
approval.
So we move approval.
I'll second.
First and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, any announcements? We're done with the regular meeting. Any announcements to make?
I just want to congratulate or commend staff on a wonderful 4th of July celebration. The grand finale was, as usual, fantastic, and the vendors were great. The location of the stage was better, and I just want to thank you very much for that. It was a great 4th of July.
Anything? No? Okay, no more further announcements. City Council, do we have anything in closed session? Okay, just for the record. Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you very much for attending tonight's meeting. We'll go ahead and call this adjourned.